Yay.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'd like to welcome back my friend and yours, John Martin, who's the chair of the New England Republican Town Committee, and looking forward to a engaging conversation about the goings-on in New London and beyond. We do have an election coming up in a couple of months, and with Labor Day coming up this weekend, things will be coming in full tilt here over the next 8 to 10 weeks in the political scene and process at all levels. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marty. It's always great to be here with you. Thank you for an invitation again.
Yep, I enjoy having you in here. John's also an educator, and I kind of wish when I was a younger fellow that I had more guys like him in the classroom. I probably would have done a lot better when I was in junior high and in high school, when I was a little bit distracted, I would say. There was a few teachers I had that were able to get me motivated, and I think you're one of those guys that would have been able to get me on a roll. But again, welcome. We're live tonight. The number's on the screen. If you'd like to call in, please do at 860-440-3154. I think I'd like to start tonight with Labor Day and the campaigns kind of going into full bore after this coming weekend, just to kind of give an overview of our candidates and what they're running for and what they're doing and how people might be able to have an opportunity to get to know them.
It's this is a big year. Kamala Harris is the confirmed Democratic presidential candidate. And I don't think a lot of people were super surprised to see that materialize the week before the Democratic convention. It's going to be a tight race, and anybody who says it's not is delusional. There's a lot at stake here, and on a national level. And whenever we have a presidential election, it always carries down heavily on the down ticket. And we need to really, we need to stop thinking about, well, I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote for whoever the R is. I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to vote for whoever the D is. A lot of the founding fathers, George Washington himself, spoke out against factionalism. And
did not support parties. He
did not support political parties. He frowned upon the Federalist Party. He frowned upon, the Democratic Republican Party that Thomas Jefferson was founding. But factions are a part of politics in any civilization. But this is an important year, and it's, I've seen from the municipal elections the previous year to past state and federal elections that places like New London tend to go party line, and we really should be better. Everybody, I'm serious as a heart attack. If the Democrats put up a better candidate than a Donald Trump or a Matt Corey or a Mike France, I would consider voting for them, because it's my responsibility, not as a chairman of the Republican Party or a Republican or a conservative. It's my responsibility as a citizen to elect the best person for the job. And the only way we can really do that is to understand the issues, understand how they're going to impact us, and then act on them.
So I would argue that since you brought up starting at the top, working your way down at the presidential level, that going back to Obama, actually, the Democratic Party's shift to the hard left has been significant. And Obama pledged to transform America as we know it. And I don't think that folks fully grasped what he was doing at the time and the areas that he was trying to make those changes. But they are have been this past term with Biden and Harris to many degree being implemented. There's a hard push to a socialist government, and as has been said on some of the talk radios, / communist. It's almost that far to the left. It's discouraging, disturbing, throwing a little globalism in there, and it's not America as we knew it growing up.
No. I'm concerned about, this unrealized capital gains tax, which means that if somebody realizes, my house appreciated in value. And even though, people in the Harris campaign are arguing, we're only going to apply this to houses that are worth $100 million or more. Please. Before you know it, that's going to be applied to houses that are worth 50 and then 10 and then $1 million and then $500,000. And before you know it, you and I are going to find that I have to, so if my house value went from $150,000 to $300,000, all right, it doubled in value because of its appraised value. Under this unrealized capital gains plan, I would have to cough up, money to pay off the value in my house. That's not in my bank account.
That's right. It's an anticipated gains.
And that's real, folks. I teach economics, among other things, and I'm not exaggerating this. This is how it works. Price controls. Notice how a couple of weeks ago, Waltz and Harris were, going out. We have to go after the big grocery chains. Blah 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 blah. Again, economics teacher here. Grocery stores, even major grocery stores, routinely run on a 3 to 5% profit margin. Okay, they're not making money. And when you look at the cost of, freight on board costs, FOB costs, bringing your cheese and bringing your milk and bringing your chicken and beef and pork and bacon and all of these things that fill our shelves. I mean, those costs have increased astronomically because transport costs have increased astronomically.
And why they go up? That's because of what I would call irresponsible energy policies.
Mm-hmm. We went and, listen, no matter how you want to cut it, in 2020 we were a net exporter of petroleum, of gasoline and oil and natural gas for the first time in probably half a century. Now, we've drained our strategic reserves to artificially keep prices down. We're doing it again because it's an election cycle year and Labor Day is coming up. So, folks, it's like Wizard of Oz. I mean, pay no attention to the person behind the curtain. No, pay attention to the person behind the curtain. Okay, because they don't have our best interests in mind. And we have some really solid candidates. We have Matt Corey, who's challenging Chris Murphy. We have
for U.S. Senate.
For U.S. Senate, we have Mike France challenging Joe Courtney. We have on a state level, we have Sean Mastriani, who's running against Martha Marks. Beloved Carter, who's running against
Anthony
Nolan, and Ms. Scheinblum, Maureen or Elizabeth? I'm sorry, it's been a long day. But she's running against
Christine Connolly.
Yeah, who's fairly entrenched, I understand, in Groton. So
and that's primarily Groton with a sliver of southern New London.
So we have a good slate of candidates. I mean, honestly, top to bottom. And Matt Corey is solid. Mike France is amazing. I mean, you want to talk about a guy, Joe, Two-Sub Joe always loves to talk about, delivering the goods for Eastern Connecticut. Although Mike France actually served in the Navy.
On submarines.
On submarines. I mean, he worked in the industry. He knows how EB and other sub-builders, he knows how these companies work. I mean, he knows the process. He knows how to get things done.
And he also served on the Assembly in Connecticut as a state rep.
Yes,
and he knows how government works. He's a very sharp guy and would do us well.
Matt Corey he's run very good campaigns. I think he did a credible job in his last run. And, I hope, and he seems to be very enthused. And he's hit the hit the streets, and he's knocking on doors, and he's putting out a good message. And so I think that we need to stop thinking about just don't D and do the top rows, folks, or just take the time, find out what these people are all about, and make informed choices that are going to serve you and our community.
And I think that it's important, again, as you outlined at the top, at the presidential level, and that is do your best to take personality out of this election. It seems as if we're going to go through a third cycle here of folks that are going to, that don't like
Either,
but there seems to be a passion of those who have a distaste for Donald Trump. And they won't even look at his policies because they don't like him. Not only his policies, but his delivery of the goods as president, which I thought he did a sterling job. And look fairly at the Democratic opposition and say, what do I want? What direction do I want to go? And if you could take like I say, the personalities out of it, I think more people than not would go and say, you know what, Mr. Trump's on the right track, and you should be giving him a good look. But I mean, that's kind of fairy tale because some folks have just got their heels dug in, and no matter what he does or says, and no matter what she does or says, they're going to flip that lever or fill in that little bubble, and it's going to be left to a handful of folks in a handful of states that are going to call this election.
One of the problems I think too is that, when I was growing up, you could still pick up a local newspaper, whether it be the Journal Enquirer. I grew up in the Manchester area, or the Hartford Current, or what it used to be the New London Day, and you could get like really objective reporting. You could turn on ABC, CBS, NBC Evening News, and you could get objective reporting.
As well as state news.
And yeah, now, as a blessing or as a curse, it's most of us get our information from social media, and once again, I mean, the Democratic Party on a national level, certainly on a national level, have been very adroit, and once again, give credit to Barack Obama for that, because Barack Obama revolutionized Instagram and politics, and so social media really got him elected in 2008, and but at least listen, you can go and watch city council meetings on YouTube. You can watch C-SPAN and see actual hearings, and you can once again, using YouTube and other repositories that also have some of their own flaws, but you can actually watch raw footage. You can see these press conferences. You can see these hearings. You can see the business of the nation and of our state and of our city council being conducted. If you can't make it to a city council meeting, and maybe more people should, you can still get out there and watch and read their body language, listen to the language they're using. What exactly are they saying? Because folks, I've heard, state and local politicians say one thing, and then by the time it hits the day, it sounds much more polished. It's you can't. The media used to be the fourth estate, and it used to be like the pillar of the First Amendment right to freedom of speech and to understand, to be a legitimate check on government, and largely it isn't anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I have stated for years that if the quote-unquote mainstream media was even remotely neutral, there would be no need for a guy like Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
But guys of his ilk and others, the Sean Hannitys of the world, Fox or Newsmax and stuff, are there as an antidote to the MSNBCs and CNNs,
And,
as well as the legacy networks.
I don't know if you heard the news today, but Mark Zuckerberg actually admitted that the Biden-Harris administration had exerted tremendous pressure on suppressing COVID opinions and even information that was contrary to what the CDC and the Biden White House was promulgating. And he said, I was wrong. Facebook won't do it again, or actually calls it Meta now. Meta won't do it again. He didn't come out there and say, I'm all in for Trump, or, I'm going to stand up against this party, or with that party. But just admitting it, maybe it was because he saw the writing on the wall, and he wanted to try to make his peace with the feds before they dropped the hammer on him.
Well, the proof will be in the pudding as we get into this election cycle. I mean, it's been proven again, with the Hunter Biden laptop and so many other issues.
He mentioned that as well.
That they put their thumb on it and weighed heavily in the election 4 years ago. That may have tilted it to the Democrats' advantage to get them over the top in a tight election.
But love him or hate him, I mean, Elon Musk, since he took over Twitter and rebranded it as X, I stick my head on X, a little bit every day, and I follow people who are far lefties. I follow people who are far righties. I follow the middle of the roads, the fiscal conservatives, social conservatives, liberals of all different ilk, because when you see what they're saying, and because unless you are basically breaking the law, X is it's an open playground, and they don't really seem to care as much if your feelings are hurt.
As the way it should be. Let
Amen.
ideas rise or fall on their merits.
Mm-hmm.
Not because you think it's a good idea or maybe not a good idea. So you have the capacity to put your thumb on it where it doesn't get aired. That's wrong.
It is. And ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, we get the government we deserve. So if you're not happy with taxes, if you're not happy with, the
Freedom of speech.
your ability to live the way you want to live, if you're not happy with, the fact that you're struggling just to pay your mortgage or your rent or in grocery bills, and buy your kids nice clothing, and then hopefully you have some dollars left over to get something for yourself. I mean, there's a reason for that, and we don't have to be like that. We inherited one of the most powerful economies in the history of the world, and it's all of that could vanish like that.
Well, as Reagan said 40 some odd years ago, I mean, we're only one generation away from losing our liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And he's absolutely correct. And I feel we're teetering on that as we speak tonight.
And it just doesn't go on a national level. I mean, these things also apply at our state level and even our municipal level. So let's take it a little closer to home, and let's look at the budget referendums. We in New London, we petitioned the budget, and we successfully accomplished that at the end of May. The city council sat on it for as long as they could. They gave a token. They passed a new budget with a token decrease of $50,000 by deferring the appointment of an assistant police chief for several months. That really wasn't what we wanted, and a number of people, and not just people who are on the Republican Town Committee, there were people who weren't involved, who were independents, who contacted us and said, what are we going to do? So, God bless John Russell and Gina Phillips. They really spearheaded the second.
Put in a yeoman effort.
They did. They really spearheaded the second referendum, and it passed. Even though we had to scramble to get signatures because they invalidated a number of them. But we successfully petitioned the budget, and we were told, even before the city council met, the mayor sat there and said, well, no, listen, New London, you don't get a second bite of the apple. That's what your mayor told you.
And the thing is that's patently untrue. And if the mayor was correct in his verbiage there, in essence, we have no bite at the apple, because you make a petition, and if the council makes no action or is a rather tepid response, then you have no recourse. And that's not the way it works. You should be able to continue to challenge and push and force your government to represent you or us, as the case may be. And the charter, again, I think the city attorney as well as the mayor grossly misrepresented things in this. But it's so daunting to keep coming back to the well. And they're banking on that.
Everybody who did sign, regardless of your political affiliation or no affiliation, or even interest or involvement in politics. I had people who signed just because they didn't think this was right. And, good for you, because it's not. And listen, let's actually play a little bit of fact here. When the budget was successfully challenged and the city reduced, they cut $50,000 from it, which was really a slap in the face to everybody who signed it and everybody who's a taxpayer in this city, which means everybody. Because even if you're a renter, your landlord is not going to eat those tax dollars. He's passing that down. He or she's passing it down to you. So
via your rent.
So when that budget was reduced, we didn't take a second bite of the first apple. That was a new apple, and we took the bite out of that one. Okay, so first off, the mayor was wrong, and even more disturbing to me, Londrigan, who is a city attorney, should have known that this isn't a second bite. This is a whole new apple.
So as soon as the budget was amended, you have a new ordinance.
Exactly, and they know that. I guess they didn't think you and I knew that, and they certainly don't think any of you watching knows that.
I also think they insulted their own council. I
Well,
don't think they thought that they knew.
Yeah, well,
Because if I was a councilor, I would have challenged that sitting up there for those reasons.
and it wasn't. It was kind of refreshing to notice that, there were councilors who were a little disturbed. And they wanted to have some discussion. They wanted to have some dialogue. They recognized that when you get 300 people who are willing to write their name and their address, put their, sign their name on that petition, when you get that many people who are upset about something, the council has an obligation to sit down and talk to them. Not one city councilor contacted me as the RTC chair. Not one city councilor, not the mayor, not the law director, nobody.
And one thing, an action that the council could have taken initially, and if they had some cojones, they would have sent the thing to a referendum and allowed the community to vote on that, to see if they approved of their action. But apparently they didn't have enough confidence in their own work so they felt compelled to shut it down and basically say, go screw.
The people like John Russell and others, but they've talked about how, you know, they could have mitigated the tax burden on homeowners by using rainy day fund money. Many of these new apartment complexes and commercial buildings that are popping up, they have prorated property taxes. So, you know, they
Abatements.
abatements.
If they're in enterprise zones, that's by law, they get that.
And that's perfectly, listen, you know, more people, you know, more property in the tax rolls eventually is a good thing. But we're taking it on the chin. We have a rainy day fund that we could have used to mitigate the impact of our property taxes. And I'm going to be flat out honest with everybody. I'm paying my property taxes as I'm delaying it as long as possible because it's the only way that I can express my discontent. And when I do pay it, and it will be this week, you know, I'll add a note saying this is being paid under protest because I feel I'm being taxed without being represented. And everyone, when you pay your taxes, you should be sending in a similar note. Once again, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Green Party or a Libertarian or no party. We are all being abused.
Yeah. Well, listen, this tax hike for residential impacts all.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, Greens. You don't even have to be registered. If you own property, your taxes went up significantly.
It's last primary, and granted there wasn't much action, but what, 380 people maybe showed up to vote in the actual primary?
You mean for the U.S. Senate?
Yeah.
380. I think it was less than 50, to be honest.
Oh, no, excuse me, you're right. I was thinking about, you know, the primary back in spring, which was also a horribly low turnout. You know, and granted, I mean, we just have to do better. Folks, here's the deal. New London is one of two towns in the state of Connecticut that were grandfathered in to protect us against a law that required minority party representation in municipal governments, which meant that if we had minority representation in New London,
We have 2 seats.
John Russell and Gina Phillips, I think both would have earned seats in the city council. I think I would have earned a seat, and Kat Goulart would have earned a seat on the Board of Ed. But because we don't have, you know, minority representation, and because Democrats outnumber Republicans in New London almost 8-1, the likelihood, as long as people are going to vote for the same people who are doing absolutely nothing but looking good and handing out awards and going to, you know, New London, Proud of New London nights.
Have their picture taken.
Have their pictures taken. As long as you let them keep doing that, there's no other voice in this city. We have nothing.
Well, that's why we're here, to try to energize folks, let them know that there is a viable alternative in the New London Republican Party. It may be small, but we are viable. And we are actively soliciting and asking for folks to check us out.
Yes.
We got a call. Let's go to the
Great.
phones here. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hey, Marty, thanks for taking my call. Hi, John. You're worried about taxes now. Worry about once this community center they're in the process of building is up and running. They're already forecasting in today's dollars that's good for the first 4 years. That's going to be short $750,000.
Yeah.
Yet they're all concerned that last year Ocean Beach lost $116K.
Mm-hmm.
That's today's dollars. So by the time it's up and running, you can figure that center alone is going to lose 1 mill rate.
Well, you've got to recognize that our friends and neighbors in our surrounding communities in Waterford and East Lyme, Stonington, Montville, etc., they're going to be our saviors, and they're going to come into New London and take out memberships, and they're going to pay the freight. That's according to Mayor Passerow.
Why? They're already redoing or building new their own. They're not going to come to New London.
No.
And then, depending on what your status is in New London, your rate to join is going to be on a scale.
Yep.
Are you suggesting that
Waterford doesn't charge their residents, other than fees for certain activities, a flat to go to their community center, where they want to New London? I think the last quote was $475, and that was before it was even being built. The project is already 3 times what it originally cost, and it's still not finished. I mean,
the original budget was $30 million, and it's up to $40, and we're
original was
getting
$20 million,
less
a
for
6-lane
more.
swimming pool, and was going to include the senior center.
Right.
Then they went to $30 million and got rid of the seniors.
Yep.
Now it's $42 million, and they don't expect it to be open for another year or two. The Coast Guard says they're not going to be up and running to 2026. We're going on almost the same length of time that Fort Trumbull hasn't been developed.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that's going to come out of that whole Coast Guard is the city is going to get stuck with a pedestrian bridge that the constituents of this city, the electorate, has basically said on 3 occasions, we don't want that pedestrian bridge.
You're absolutely correct. We were bold-faced lied to on that.
We were lied to on the whole magnet school system. We were told Harbor School was going to be closed if we accepted a magnet school system back, I think, 2014. Here it is 10 years later, and they're closing not because of a magnet school system, which we have yet to be fulfilled, but they're closing it because of the condition of the building.
And, you know, I ran for Board of Ed, and I taught in New London for 21 years. And one of my problems with the K through 12 magnet school is that you lose money if you can't maintain a certain percentage of out-of-district students. I'm not bad-mouthing any teacher in New London public schools, because I stood in front of on a board for 21 years there. There's some really dedicated, wonderful people who teach and work there. But I knew there was no way we're going to be able to maintain those numbers. And as those numbers are declining, the state is going to start pulling some of its funding back, and they're going to want us to pay them back. And I have no idea.
Know, in the whole term that we've had the magnet school system, whether we've ever been able to obtain that percentage we're supposed to have to get the funding back from the state. I know we lost out on $800K at Jennings because we failed to file paperwork on a timely fashion.
Mm-hmm. So we do have some problems, and I'm once again, I'm not trying to kick the magnet schools, but if we can't attract people to New London to educate their children, how can we expect them to shell out large sums of money out of their own pocket to use our community center?
Well, that's kind of what I brought up the magnet school system, John, because we were sold the same bill of goods that everybody's in the area is going to want to come to our magnet schools. Little did we know Groton missed other areas built their own magnet schools. So just like the community center idea, that's fallen flat. I don't want to take up a lot of time. I thank you guys for taking the call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that gentleman's very active and keeps an eye on the city like a hawk, I might add. We need more folks that are paying attention.
We do. And this actually kind of leads into, folks, we have, New London Republicans. We have a presence on Facebook. And drop in and visit us. And once again, listen, I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Green. I don't care what you are. You're a citizen of New London. And if we disagree on 20% of issues, you know what that means to me, Marty? If we disagree on 20%, that means we can agree on 80. So even if I don't agree with somebody on everything, If we can find common ground, something we can agree on, then welcome. Work with us, we'll work with you, because ultimately, this isn't a Democrat town, it's not a Republican town, it's a town of people who live and work and make their lives and raise their families in New London. And if you're going to put party over that, then just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Other expenses here in town that have gone up exponentially is our utility bill, the water and sewer and stormwater bills going up very, very high. Electric bills, everybody's electric bills have gone up, unbelievably, and we're paying for those who don't pay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the public benefit portion, which is a large part of the latest, increase in our utility bills. That is paying back, United Illuminating and Northeast Utilities for people who didn't pay during COVID, and also too for people who just can't or won't pay their electricity bill. And once again, folks, I'm not going to be a jerk and sit there and say, how dare you not pay your electricity bill? Because I see people when I'm at Stop and Shop or ShopRite who are like literally holding basic foods, and saying, can I afford this? I have to have rent or mortgage, I have insurance, I have a car payment,
But this is in essence, a tax that's been shifted from the state government to the
to
utility.
us. And
Through private firm, through a monopoly.
Pura. I mean, it's I don't think that either one of the utility companies were really happy with this, but Pura kind of sat there and said, it is what it is. You want to get any money back? This is what you do. Also, too, you and I are also on the hook to pay some of that rate increase. Also goes to increase the number of charging stations throughout the state of Connecticut for electric vehicles, which are still a very low number. And once again, folks, if you want to have an electric vehicle, I really don't care. That's your choice. God bless America.
The key is your choice.
Yes.
Not the mandate, but your choice.
It's I've been in a Tesla, and I think they're kind of cool. I know people. I mean, if they made a decent hybrid pickup truck or a decent hybrid SUV, I'd probably buy one if I could afford it.
I drive a
I know
Prius.
you do. And I know people who love their Priuses. I think hybrids are a really good choice. And once again, even electric vehicles, I think that there are long-term. I don't think there is friendly to the environment or our pocketbooks as everybody makes them out to be. And in really cold states, it's turned out to be kind of a dangerous vehicle when your battery drains because of the extreme cold. But once again, I mean, if you want, if you want to have an electric vehicle and your lifestyle, keeps you within that range, then charge it at home. Sorry. I mean, or pay, because some of these charging stations are free.
Well, that's a benefit if you can afford those kind
Yeah.
of cars, and they're very expensive.
Yeah.
And then you get free fuel. Doesn't seem quite fair.
But we need to, and once again, folks, you want an electric car, get an electric car. You want a hybrid, get a hybrid. You want to ride, you want to have a horse and buggy, like, ride around like the Amish. Knock yourself out. As long as you're obeying the laws, and you're not harming anybody, I don't care. And nobody should care. That's your choice. Just don't expect us to subsidize everything.
But even with subsidies with private business, in our local paper, We have a restaurant downtown that's on public property, down on the waterfront, that is for sale after, what, two
2 years?
And they're not getting it done. So they're looking to cut bait. And I think that speaks volumes. And for those who are predicting that the Coast Guard Museum is going to be outdrawing Mystic Seaport, I don't know what they're smoking, but I just don't see it.
It's, we really do. The Thames River is lovely, or it was lovely. And once you get past, the windmill production, monstrosity, and you get past that and you're heading up North River, the Thames is a lovely river. The Long Island Sound is beautiful. We're blessed to live in one of the most, absolutely breathtaking, seaside communities, on the Eastern Coast. It really is. If you've ever spent any time out sailing around, the Sound and out beyond the Race and up the Thames River, it's amazing. How are we not capitalizing on this and our history? I just don't get it.
New London has got a long history of stubbing its toe. Just not quite getting there. Always seeming to step in it, someplace, somewhere.
Excuse me.
I was chastised online a couple of weeks ago by a gentleman who's a former New London cop. He'd been on Lee Elsey's program, and was speaking about, it had to do with the referendum, or not the referendum, but the petition, should I say, about the budget.
Yep.
And the need for a police presence downtown. The vacancies in the storefronts is staggering, absolutely staggering. There's absolutely no pedestrian traffic. And I called out that, I think that we're misguided with our leadership that they don't put a visible police presence downtown. If people don't feel safe, they're not coming. And if it's not clean, they're not coming. And this officer, because I'm disappointed that you would encourage the listeners in his listening area, which goes into Long Island and Rhode Island, to tell them to not come to downtown New London. I'm not telling them to not come to downtown New London. They're making that decision on their own because they read and see what's going on or perhaps not going on. It's going to require a leadership shift on what's priority.
We, once again, I taught in New London for a number of years. We sent children to some of the best colleges and universities in the nation. We sent children to the Naval Academy, to the Coast Guard Academy.
I got the Roman kids go to Yale.
Yale. I think West Point is either West Point or the Air Force Academy. I know we haven't gotten all of them, but we got a chunk of them. But the thing of it is that we have educated children, born and bred right here in New London, so that they not only were able to get accepted into some of the best colleges and universities in the nation, they thrived. And so we have it. It's just not. You can have the best run. You can have the best run machine in the planet, but if the hand running it is inept, then it's going to fail. So and that's where we are. On all ends of the city government. We have the Customs House. We have Shaw Mansion. We have
our own little freedom trail here.
Yes. We have Fort Trumbull. We have
the burial ground. We've got
burial ground.
We've got the mill under the bridge. We've got
the
courthouse,
House.
the Hempstead House, the Huguenot House. It just goes on and on.
I used to, I was a docent at the Hempstead House for a number of years, and I used to love how I'd see these people just stumble across it and say, I didn't even know this place existed. And I mean, I had people who, usually like when the tours like wrap up and, we're trying to like get ready for the day, I called my sister up and she's down at the beach and she wants to bring her kids up. Can you stay open for just a little longer? And how am I going to say no to that? So, we'd stay open a little later and, these people would come in and they'd just be amazed at, stuff that we have in our backyard that, let's be honest, come on folks, ask yourself, when was the last time you've been to the Hempstead House or the Guard Arts Center or the Customs Museum or the Shaw Mansion or walked our own Freedom Trail? When was the last time that you actually celebrated, how vibrant and unique our city is?
Yeah. But these historical sites, the little singular islands, fiefdoms, and they don't necessarily all play well together. They need standardized times and openings so that people can plan if they come into New London, that they can do a walking tour, and that these facilities will be available and open, and you won't miss half because it's Tuesday. We're not open on Tuesday.
And this is where you
wake up.
This is where you need a good city council, and in New London, we have a strong mayor. You know what? This is where we need a strong mayor, a truly strong mayor. Not one who's strong-willed, not one who's going to be pushing their own agenda, but one who's going to sit there and bring all of these different groups to the table and say, listen, nobody's going to say you're not running your own show, but let's try to work together. And if we can work together, the city will help. We have some really talented people who work in city government. We really, truly do. And, and we have volunteer groups here. I mean, I volunteered at the Hempstead House for a number of years. I know people volunteer at these other historic sites. I mean, if we could get brought, once again, if we can agree on 80% of the things, we don't have to agree on the other 20%. We can find that common ground and we can do things that are going to bring more people, more dollars, put more cops out in downtown because now we can justify it, maybe fill up a few more of these storefronts.
Yeah, well, listen, we've got a lot of new apartment buildings that have been constructed in the last few years. I mean, down in Shaw's Cove, the dock and the beam, and the A&R Builders has also built a large building at the foot of Mansfield Road. You've got a lot of well-compensated engineers coming into the area for working an electric boat, but you're not seeing them walking through downtown.
No. My lovely bride had her birthday a couple of weeks ago, and we went downtown. We were going to be taking another really great New London, thing, is they had the full moon cruises. So the full moon cruise fell upon her birthday, and so we were going to go, eat at a local restaurant, and then we were going to take the cruise. But unfortunately, the weather, they canceled the cruise that night. But we decided to go downtown and have dinner. I saw the same people that I've seen for 20 years downtown. I don't see a lot of the new people. I don't know where they're going, but I don't think they're really hanging out much in
Downtown New London.
Downtown New London. I think they're going to Mystic. I think they're going to the casinos.
Niantic.
And hey, let's be honest. I mean, Niantic's got some pretty nice restaurants.
Oh, they do. Geez, and Rod Cornish moved out there.
And also too, by the same token, you have some restaurants. There's some great places to get breakfast in New London that nobody knows about. But we've got a lot of these really expensive, apartments and a lot of well-compensated tenants, but I don't think they're spending on that many of their entertainment dollars here. And they should be. And I'm not saying because they owe it to us, but they should want to be here. I mean, they live so close to downtown, it's a 10-minute walk to get to the corner of Bank and State.
Well, but there has to be a reason.
Reason.
You know, I mean, that's one thing that the Guard Arts Center does a terrific job
Amen.
with. I mean, I went to a show in the last, was it a week or so, to see the Our House, the Crosby, Stills and Nash band that played at the Garden. I don't know if the place was full, but they had a really, really good crowd. But I must say, though, that it was long in the tooth. I mean, this is, there were no young people. This is kind of like the Woodstock generation coming out for a night, but they were out.
There. And let's pull this all together, folks. You know, because we've been talking about a lot of things that probably people were surprised that we've been talking about in the last 20 minutes. You know, revitalizing downtown. You know, celebrating our shared heritage. You know, the Juneteenth celebration at the Hempstead House is amazing, and it's not very well attended. So, folks, how does this have anything to do with how we started this conversation, Marty? It has everything to do is that we have a city government and we have a mayor who is just doing the same thing to keep everybody dumb, fat, and happy, and ignorant. Okay? Ask yourself this November, what has Martha Marks done for you? Really, what has Tony Nolan done to make New London better?
He's missed a photo op. That's what
next year, what have any of those city councilors, what has the mayor done? What has this party done to make things better for you? That's the question we need to answer. And it's not a comfortable question for a lot of people in town. You know, I come from a Democratic family. And a strong Democratic family. My father was a strong Democrat. My entire family were strong Democrats. I became a Reagan Republican when I was in 8th grade. And, you know, I regret nothing. I was the only kid in, you know, Rockville High School who walked around with a, you know, Ronald Reagan, you know, Reagan Bush T-shirt. But But you know what? Ronald Reagan even sat there. He sat down with Tip O'Neill. He sat down with Gorbachev. He sat down with Boris Yeltsin. He sat down with anybody who would be willing to sit across the table from him and say, listen, what common ground can we find that's going to make both parties better? That's going to give you something and it's going to give me something, and it's going to improve everybody's lives. Ladies and gentlemen, please go to our Facebook page. Please take a look at what we do. We're not the boogeymen that people like to make us out to be. We're your neighbors. We go to church with you. We use the parks. We shop in the same stores. We wave to each other when we're walking our dogs. Let's stop letting those people who want to divide us.
That's terrific. I can't think of a better way to close our show tonight. We've hit the magic moment here, and it's.
We have.
And I want to thank you for
Thank you,
carving out
Marty.
an hour to join me here on City Focus. And next week we'll have more of a sports program. I've got Adam Goss coming in. He's the head baseball coach at St. Joseph's University up in West Hartford, and he was in before. And I'm looking forward to get his synopsis of last season, their kickoff season. And he's a really bright young fella, and I think you'll enjoy the program. So, with that, folks, I want to thank John for coming in.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again next week on City Focus. Good night.